A rabbi and a millennial walk into a web series. The rabbi turns to the millennial and asks, "What inspires you?" And the millennial says, "I am so glad you asked." In a world filled with small talk, we're all about the smart talks. Join the conversation.
Welcome to the first episode of the SMARTalks show. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to welcome all of you. It's really exciting to do our first show. When I started SMARTalks, it was a dream to start an online community of young Jews who could connect online through timely topics. It was really something that I didn't want just to be another talking head, another rabbi talking to an audience of millennials or Gen Z who trying to inspire them and empower them. It was very important that it wasn't just me talking, but we had someone who could represent the audience, who was a voice of the millennial, a voice of the generation. We have Becky Bordeaux with us, who is a millennial, who is an actress, who is a amazing person who's doing some amazing work all over the world. And we thought that she could be your voice.
I think it's amazing that you're fostering this like bottom-up sort of conversation, because for so long from the outside looking in on Jewish study and practice and learning, it felt like it was just the rabbis that dictated like all the rules. This is how it is. You have no say in it. It's black or white. It's do or die. And for me, like re-educating myself in a sense, it's been so refreshing to find that I have like my voice is being nurtured, that I do have a voice, and that it's a humongous part of Judaism to engage and to find meaning and to carve out a Jewish identity that's my own within this framework of study. It's nice to be able to kind of represent a generation that doesn't just want to do things because people tell us to. You know, we're and I don't think it's just millennials. I just think it's the world, especially at this point in time, is that we don't want to do things just because everyone said, "Oh, that's how we've been doing it for so long." Oh, your ancestors did it. Not that that's not a valid reason to do something. If something's worked, I think it's silly to just want to tear it apart. But at the same time, to find a deeper sense of why and a meaning that's personal is so important. And I think that what we're doing here is bridging both of those things.
Do you mind taking a couple seconds to talk about your journey, where you are, what got you there?
I was born in Israel, but I was raised in the United States, in Philadelphia, where I spent most of my upbringing, went to college. And then I moved to LA, where I spent 9.5 years becoming a filmmaker, a producer, a creative. I acted, I did all sorts of creative things. And that was at the expense of a lot of like internal work. Then at the end of my 20s, I woke up and realized, whoa, wait a second. I have completely lost track of like my core values. What's important to me? How do I see the rest of my life moving forward? Like, yes, I've become so successful in my career, and in many ways I have the things I always wanted. But when it came to like the internal core things, especially my Jewish identity, I felt like so completely lost. And so I put everything on hold, including a career I built, over 9.5 years, my apartment in Beverly Hills, my car, all of that material stuff. I pressed pause and took a sharp right turn to Jerusalem, where I've been for the last month and a half studying, just re-educating myself in a way that has been so meaningful. The community has like really taken me in. And when I say community, it's such a vast community in Israel. Even just within Jerusalem, where I'm based out of, there's so many different pockets of Jewish exploration and truth and wisdom. And it's been really exciting to spend weeks on end just like studying different aspects of Judaism, finding what resonates for me. And, I'm working on this documentary that's kind of pulling all of that together around a conversation that's really centralized around religion and faith and marriage. So it's been a lot of digging deep into like, what's true to me? What is truth? What role does Judaism have in my life? What is important about Judaism? Why has Judaism stood the test of time? Like, who are these people? Like, what is this tribe that I was born into? Because it became really important to me to figure those things out. I didn't want to look back on my 20s and 30s when I had the time and the energy to do all this and like set up a foundation for the rest of my life, for my family. I didn't want to regret not having fully explored my Judaism. And I also wanted to have my children, when they ask me questions about, our ancestors, and not just that, but everyday life, values. Who am I? What's important? Why am I here? What's my purpose? How do I live a more fulfilling life? I wanted to have answers for them, and that first started with having answers for myself, and I'm finding a lot of that on this journey.
That's awesome. I think that what's really cool about the way you talk about this journey is that you're on a journey. You're a seeker. You're a questioner. You don't just give into your first impression or what people tell you, but you're peeling the onion of the issue, trying to delve deeper into it. Every single person needs to find the element of Judaism that inspires them.
Totally.
Becky, I thought for today we could jump into doing a little studying.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can delve deeper into an issue. We thought, that it would be a good idea to talk about the whole idea of ethics of our fathers, the idea of Pirkei Avot, and use lessons in Pirkei Avot to be the catalyst for our conversations.
I love that. Can we give a little context into where ethics of our fathers? That is a cat. Welcome to Israel. Cat, you can't do that. I was wondering if we could give a little context for the people watching that don't know what ethics of our fathers is or what Pirkei Avot is, where it comes from.
What's called Pirkei Avot, or in English, it's often called ethics of our fathers. It's a compilation of sayings from rabbis in the Talmudic era. There's a profound lesson in calling it ethics of our fathers, and I think that there's a huge opportunity when you think about how you brand things and how you term things and how you talk to the people around you. There's a lot of embedded messaging imbued in the actual titles and the actual things that you say and the actual things that you do. And so when you talk about ethics of our fathers, so what is a father? One of the things we can see throughout the different quotes is that the person who was quoting that idea, who is quoted to have said that idea, lived that idea. One example is in the first chapter of Pirkei Avot, this 15th saying. It says, "Say little and do much." This is a quote, Rav Shammai. When we quote Shammai and saying, to say little and do much, meaning actions is the most important things, don't talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk in modern terminology, that's because he imbued it and he taught it by example through his actions. The rabbis decided to call it ethics of our fathers because these are teachers, these are role models who've taught us these behaviors so that we can achieve our goals and be the best people we can be.
It's like the Jewish self-help role model book.
Turn it over, for everything is in it. And I think that that's a core value of what we're trying to accomplish here with this show. That we're finding ideas, we're delving deeper, we're challenging our first impression, going deeper into our second impression. What I say, hopefully you will challenge me, and what you say, I will challenge you, and it'll become a discussion. And it's because through this process, everything will be in it.
This is so different than how we're used to learning, because typically there's an educator who imparts truth onto the students and they take it in and that's it. There's no real questioning. And to me, that's such an interesting and really valuable activity that's nurtured in Jewish study, is that idea of continuing to oh my God, this cat is killing me. Hold on. You have to. Can I just throw cats like that? Sensei, I know you want to be a part of Jewish study, but it's for humans. So I think it's really valuable that in Judaism, we do encourage the student to be an active participant in the study, and that there isn't just one truth. I'm so used to having truth handed to me on a silver platter, and to actually have to work for it means that in a sense, it's way more fulfilling because I'm arriving at it myself. I'm teaching myself truth, which one of my favorite quotes ever is, we don't really learn anything that we don't teach ourselves. It's we learn the things that we really choose to internalize. And that lasts. That's an everlasting lesson. But it's also challenging because it means you have to be active, you have to be thinking, you have to be contributing, you have to be putting in work. And most people are lazy. So this is a very different sort of process. And I'd be interested to see, like, as our audience gets to chime in and reflect back, like, where they're struggling, where they're like, ugh, I wish someone would just tell me, like, what is the answer? What is truth? Like, I don't want to have to work for it. But that's like working through that discomfort for me of like just wanting it easy, wanting it handed to me. Really going through that has been some of the most rewarding experiences of my life, let alone the past month and a half in Jerusalem, where like nothing has been handed to me on a silver platter. Right, Kat?
Building on this whole idea of multiple understandings, I'd like to delve into a concept called pardes, which is an idea that Judaism, Jewish study, Jewish experience, our lives are just like a garden. That a garden has so many different facets and different elements. And each element is critical part of the garden, part of that ecosystem. In Hebrew, the word for garden is called pardes. And it's also used as an acronym to point to different levels of understanding and interpretation within Jewish wisdom. So what are they? So the Fei is Pshat, which is the literal narrative. Remez, the Resh in Pardes, is an allusion. It's a hint that it's something that's a subtext that we can learn that's a little deeper beyond the face value of that text. Drush, with the Daled, is the homily, a more poetic, meaningful experience, meaningful lesson that that's deeper in its inspiration. And Sod, which in Hebrew Sod means secrets. Secrets is the Kabbalistic, spiritual, meaningful, esoteric level of understanding that sort of brings out the diamond within the rough and helps us understand, sort of connect to the godly and the soul of whatever issue or experience or learning that we're having.
When I learned of the different levels, first of all, I was like, what? That blew my mind, that there wasn't this just like the one entry point to wisdom. And knowing that, to me, was like earth-shattering because, for example, a lot of people, I think, learn some aspect of Jewish wisdom at, like, let's say a pshat level. And to them, it just, like, wasn't enough. Well, it wasn't deep enough, and so I just wrote it off. But to know ahead of time that, like, well, no, just wait a second. That's one of 4 levels, 4 entry points that you can engage with something. So there really is something for everyone. Oh, you want to engage from a more, let's say, like, I love the secrets. In many ways, I'm just like, ooh, let me know the mystical, like, reasons behind. In other areas, I'm just like, give me the pshat. Like, I do not want all of that. And to, like, understand that there is this kaleidoscope of entry points was amazing to me.
And that's powerful. And I think that's why we say Shivim Panim LaTorah, there are 70 faces to Torah, because, there's so many different perspectives, and everybody, based on their life experience, based on their background, based on who they are, there are different elements to the soul. When we can tap into the soul of the issue, then we can tap into the universality, that my soul is a part of God in the same way your soul is a part of God. And that is that we are all created in God's image. It's not about me, it's about our relationship with God. So then there's no individuality. And there's a level of unity. Well, I think that the no individuality is in our individuality, there is a unity.
There's 12 tribes. There's different ways to be Jewish and engage. You have your Haredi, you have your, Hasidic, you have your modern Orthodox, you have your conservative, you have your Reform. Like, there's so many different ways to be Jewish today. The struggle has been to synthesize all of that. Like, there's so many different ways, then what is truth? And I think within Judaism, that would be my question back to you, Rabbi, is like, so there are so many tribes, and like how beautiful, how rich in color. It's not so black and white. You can choose your flavor. But what is then truth?
So that's a good question. And I think that for me, it's less about the particular label or camp or place that a person's at, and more, are they in that mindset of discovery? Are they in a place where they're challenging their own preconceived notions and striving to get a deeper understanding? And I think that that's something that I have to do myself, because once it's routine, I lose the soul of why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, having these type of conversations really inspires me to peel that onion, delve deeper, get to the soul of why I'm doing this.
Yeah, we're all humans and we're all, works in process, but it's refreshing to be able to have this sort of grounded conversation and constantly be deepening. And I think that's like the beauty of this epic wisdom, is that there's so many layers. And I think like this value of learning, of constantly learning, is so precious, and it's inspiring, and it gives so much meaning to life. You constantly have purpose, like you constantly have something to do, and you constantly have this community to engage with that's like hungry to keep learning, hungry to keep growing, and hungry to pass this on to future generations. It just seems like such a beautiful web of continuity, and you're never without purpose. So like in a world where so many people are struggling with like, who am I? What am I doing? Mental health issues, relationship issues, depression, like there's just so much pain and chaos. Like there's also alternatively this community of people that are constantly wanting to learn and grow together.
We wake up in the morning, right? The more we have that flash of consciousness, and all of a sudden we are debating with ourselves whether to wake up, whether to go back to sleep.
Right.
And Jewish tradition tells us that when you're in that moment of consciousness, you're waking up, there's an imperative to make a prayer, to say a prayer. That prayer is, Modeh Ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechazarta bi nishpati, b'chemla rabba emunatecha. What does that mean? We offer thanks to you, living God, eternal King, for having restored my soul within me. With mercy, your faithfulness is great. And so we wake up in the morning, some people sit up, they hold their hands, they concentrate for a second, and they say this prayer. And they're recognizing in themselves this idea that they're up, they're awake, they were asleep. And they're thankful for that one moment, that at that one moment, and hopefully it sort of creates a consciousness throughout the day, that God had just restored their soul. They were sleeping, and now they're awake. Most simplest understanding is that there's this imperative that you don't, just like the person who's giving you a present, you don't say thank you 5 minutes later, but you thank them in that one moment. Immediately when you wake up, there's that imperative to say thank you, God, or being appreciative and being not taking for granted that you have another day before you.
And I think the powerful thing about prayer too, like for me growing up, it was this thing we felt like we had to do because we were at synagogue or because like our parents told us to. But to me, especially as I've grown up and worked a lot of mindfulness and meditation into my everyday, is that, oh, this was what it was all along. I was just looking at it differently. Like my relationship to Modeh Ani has completely changed. And, when I was kind of this like rebellious kid, I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't get it. It was just like annoying. And when I worked it back into my morning routine, it was one of the most powerful things. And it's experiential. Like much of Judaism is so experiential that like we could sit here and talk about it as much as we want. But really like, I urge you all and everyone to really try it. Like try waking up and having a moment of gratitude and intention where you say Modeh Ani and see what happens. Like to me, when I wake up and I say it, then I can't go back to sleep anymore. Like I've now taken this like 10 seconds to say, thank you so much. My soul is back in my body. Like here I have another day to like fulfill my purpose. Like how incredible to have this opportunity, all of that gratitude, all of that intention and that mindfulness in that moment. It's kind of hard to hit snooze after that.
That's the basic tertiary or peripheral or just on the surface understanding of Modeh Ani, which is thanking God. So let's go into remez, because there's hidden meanings and inferences that we can learn within the words, that we have ideas a remez is something that's, you have an idea that's in one place, and then you have idea in the other place. And there's elements in both, then let's learn from both and connect them. So we have this idea that we say, Modeh Ani lefanecha, this idea that bechemla rabba amunasacha, with faithfulness, that the Talmud actually says that when a person's sleeping, it says sleep is 1/60th of death, and dreams is 1/60th of prophecy. That when our soul departs our physical body, that's the remez to God's restoration of the soul. Every day we get a glimpse into a level of restoration of the soul that's similar to the restorations of the souls during the Messianic era. But then you have sort of a Jewish, a homily, a poetic level, which is an even deeper level, which is that every morning we recognize that God restores our soul. So our actions in our life, we do on a daily basis. There are things that we could do better. There are things that we do worse. And things that are within the path of success or the path of God, or the things that are not. And so when God restores our soul, he doesn't make a calculation. Oh, you did this many right things and this many wrong things. And therefore, because you did this calculation, I'm only going to give you 5 out of 10 parts of your soul.
Right.
Or I'm going to only give you this portion and take back my portion. God doesn't make those calculations. God, with faithfulness, God gives us and entrusts us again with our whole soul. It's not about what we did yesterday. It's about what we can do today. And this one's going to knock your socks off. This is going to be amazing. The whole idea, the spiritual soul, the sod. Sod means secret. So the Kabbalistic meaning of in Modeh Ani, we say in the prayer, Melech, the king, Chai v'Kayim, living God, right? So within the spiritual realms, there are different sort of variations and explanations that are given to God, that we ascribe to God, so that we can understand God from a human perspective. But it's Melech and then Chai v'Kayim. That level of Chai v'Kayim, which is everlasting, which is a foundation, that's the spiritual level of Yesod. Yesod meaning foundation, which Yesod is a connector to the higher heavenly realms. And so when we're connecting, and our soul has connected and rised above each in spiritually when we're sleeping to the spiritual heavens, it's tapping into these higher spiritual realms so that we, because we're tapped onto these higher levels, we can rise above our physical, our mental, our worldly challenges within the day. And those things are the things that don't control us. And so by tapping into something higher than where we are in this moment, we're able to look at the context of the world around us and say, okay, that's not as controlling of me because I am tapped into something higher. There's even a deeper level than sun.
Whoa.
There's a deep level than secrets than even that spiritual level.
Okay.
And that is when a person wakes up, before he washes his face or before she, washes their hands, they're recognizing how lucky they are to be alive. And at that moment, they're tapping into a level of God, which is in the essence of God, a level of God where it's beyond a specific description or a specific name.
I feel like we traveled up the ladder of depth, right? So it was what felt like, oh, it's intention, to it's intention, but it's also because you're getting a part of your soul back, to it's this epic oneness, based on the thought of creation funneled down into Malchut. That's quite a journey of learning, which is really cool that exists, and that's a part of the tradition that we have.
And I thought that this would be a good way to start our first episode.
Yeah.
Because it really clearly presents a multifaceted approach, a multi-layered approach of learning. Our goal for moving forward for the future episodes is to be able to illustrate how these lessons can help us in all different aspects of our lives.
Today, our pilot episode was around the value in Pirkei Avot of learning. So what we did was we took the value of learning, we applied it to the Modeh Ani prayer every morning and talked about the different layers and entry points from Pshat to Sod. And what we're going to do in weeks moving forward is we're going to look at other values in Pirkei Avot and do similarly. And then we're going to bring it, kind of take it out to you guys, and you're going to engage with us, like how you're applying it in your everyday life, and maybe some questions, and maybe some feedback, as well as some pushback, because we definitely like that. Pushback.
Click in the link below in the description of this video, because we've developed a worksheet to help you take the Modeh Ani practice and apply it in reality. And so we hope to create many of these type of free downloads where you'll be able to take the ideas and lessons that we talk about in our show and actually apply it in your life with you.
I love it. And guys, try it. Wisdom is best learned when it's applied. And that's just speaking from experience. I'm not the wisest person you'll ever meet, but I will say that I've been applying and experiencing so much of this stuff, and it's really transformative, but you have to take an action. You have to actually do it, and this worksheet will help you. So yeah, super excited to hear feedback from you guys, what you think, what you're going through, what you're experiencing, and tune in to next week's episode.
Awesome. Becky, thank you so much. I know it's all the way in Israel. Thank you so much for joining us. Becky, any closing words?
Thanks, guys. No, let's co-create this. This is all about the synergy. So please tune in next week. I have terrible separation anxiety. I'll miss you if you don't. So see you next week.
Bye-bye. Catch you next week.
Bye, guys.
Subscribe to the SMARTalks channel. And hey, don't forget to click the bell icon to turn on your notifications so you don't miss a beat. We can't have that happening.